Hi, Ed. Morning, Ed.
Good morning, Mario. How are you?
Good.
Good. I hear it's cooled down in a little bit in LA.
Not too much.
No? Thought it was in the 60s or something.
No, today it was still in the 80s, at least
Oh,
when I
really? No.
drove around.
Okay.
But depends where you are. Some areas are colder.
Right.
Well, let's see. Tonight will be in the 60s. Tomorrow in the 70s.
All right. It's in the right direction for time being.
Yeah. Next Thursday, it's going to be 101.
No. In the
That's what
valley.
they look. I don't know if you can see it.
Yes, I see it. Oh my gosh.
101.
Oh, boy. Oh, great.
That's next week, not this week.
Yeah.
Hi, Ellie.
So we're on 64 Samich Dalad.
Hmm?
Tomorrow we're learning at 6:30 Daf Yomi. We said that if the roof has a fence around it 10 tvachim high, when you sell a house, you retain the ownership of the roof. But if you're going to say that when you write a star, it includes oimek verum, the depth and the height. So why wouldn't the roof be included in the sale to the buyer? Because since the fence around the roof is 10 tvachim, it becomes a dvar choshev on its own, and it's not nikne with the bias. Ravashi Toshma Damresh Lakish Zoisemeres Hamoiche Bias Lechavero. Person sells a house for Oimerlo on the Nashad Yotel Yonashali, on the condition that the upstairs is mine. Yotel Yonashalo, he keeps his upstairs. And we asked V'amrina L'may Hilchasa. And there was a machlokes amirot. Razvid Omar, Shim Rotz Lohitzi Bozizin, if he wants to extend holes or something from the second storm, Hotzi. Rav Papa Omar Shim Rotz Livnois Ali Al Gabo, if he wants to build, let's say, another story on top of their bone. Now, but if you're going to say that he doesn't acquire the airspace normally bestam, because it seems like we said you don't acquire that, lamali amanas, why would he need to make it tonight? The seller always retains the right. So ahani li amanas, the inofel hundred money, like the chiddush would be that if it fell down without that tnai, you wouldn't be able to rebuild it. So if you made the tnai, you can rebuild it. Mishnah. So if you sell a house and the house has a hole in the ground where you store water, that's called a bore. And it also has a hole in the ground that's been lined with stones, which is also used to retain water. You don't sell those when you sell a house. Lois abor velo sadus. Even though you wrote in the star the depth and the height. So this owner of the house retains ownership of the bor and the dus. But tzarich likach lo derech, he has to purchase from the person he just sold it to the right of way to the bor. Devi Rabbi Kiva. The Chachamim say if he retains the bor and the dus, then he clearly retains the right of way to there as well. If we're talking about when you sell a house, stop. You don't mention the bor and the dus. Then the bor and the dus he retains, but he gave away the right of way to how to get there. If he clearly had said chutz me'elu, then he retains the bor and the dus and the right of way. Then ein tzarich likach derech. If machron la'acher, let's say he sold the house to Ruvain, and he sold the bor and the dus to Shimon, Rabbi Kiva Omer, that if you sold those two things, the guy who buys it ain't a tzarich likach lo derech. You sold the Shimon the right of way to the bor as well. The Chachamim Omer tzarich likach lo derech. No, he will have to purchase from the buyer of the house the right of way. So Yosef Ravinim Kakashali. First of all, Hainu bor, Hainu dus. What's the difference between a bor and a dus? Amarle Rava Tosfol Ravina Torshma Tanya. Echad habor v'echad dus bekarka. Both are things that you dug into the ground to hold water. Ela shabor b'chafira. A bor is just you dig a hole in the ground. The dus bevinyan, but the dus is lined with stones. Yosef Ravashim Kakashli. I knew bor, I knew dus. He said the same thing. What's the same? Bor and the dus is the same thing. Armele Mark Shisha Beit Rav Chizr Ravashi Torshma Tanya Echad Bor Vechad Dus Bekarka El Shabor Bechafir. Same answer. So then our Mishnah said Tzarich Likach Lo Derech Divrei Rabbi Kiva, that you sell a house stam, you retain the bor and the dus, but you sold away the right of way to the bor and the dus. If you want to have the right of way, you have to buy that. The Chachamim Ma'amim Eino Tzarich, that if he retains the bor and the dus, he retains the right of way. What's the machlokes? My lav v'hakamiflagi. Rabbi Kiva savar moicha b'ayin yothel moicha. That a seller sells with a good eye, and he basically is selling everything, especially if he didn't describe specific things that he's holding back. So the bor and the dus is retained, but everything else is sold, including the right of way. But Rabbanan Savi Moicha B'ayin Ra Moicha. No, a seller has an Ayin Ra, and whatever he doesn't detail, he didn't sell, and therefore, if he retained the bor and the dus, he retains the right of way.
Okay, Ernie, that's correct, right? Ein Yofa.
So Rabbi Kiva holds a seller sells b'ayin yofe, and the Rabbanan holds that he sells b'ayin ra. So you want to say that that who has the svar is with who? You
I don't want to say anything. I'm just saying it's about Ein Yofa and Ein Ra. So that we have a thing in the diamond business. When we buy something, if somebody doesn't give with a yad toiva, we won't buy it from them because it won't be good. So when it says Ayin Ra, when a seller sells with an Ayin Ra, it's not a good thing. It's not a compliment. It's not and when somebody sells with an Ayin Toiva, that's a compliment. That's the way it should be.
Rambam, by the way, the Rambam and the Shulchan Aruch paskin like Rabbi Kiva, that we assume they're good, like what Walter is saying.
Yeah, yes, that assumption
the buyers
is that
are selling with Ayin Yofa.
Ayin Yafa, because otherwise you don't want to buy from them. Somebody gives you the evil eye, you don't want to buy anything from him.
That which we said, the Rabbi Kiva Tamei, that Rabbi Kiva is consistent everywhere. The Omer Moicher ba'ayin Yofa Moicher. Mehacha. Where is this learning from? From this sugya? Mimai. I'll show you not so. Maybe there's another principle in which they're arguing here. Dilma, Rabbi Kiva Savar, Ein Adam rotze sheyitin ma'osav v'yirdesu acherim. There's a buyer who's giving his money to buy something for the house. And now this other guy has to come tramping through, right? The owner of the boar who retained the rights to the boar has to walk through his house and his gardens to go to the boar. So so Rabbi Kiva's holding that when you sell a house, when you sell this, you're going to sell him everything. Otherwise, a person is not going to want to buy this kind of complicated asset. But Rabbanan Savri, Ein Adam Rotze Sheyitul Mos, and Yifrach Ba'avir. The Chachamim say that the guy's going to pay money, but he retains the right to the boar. But he's going to have to fly to the boar? That doesn't make any sense. And really, they're not arguing in this issue of do buyers sell ba'ayin yafa or not. So the Gemara proves that it is a machlokas regarding ayin yafa and ra, but it's miseifa, where it says machron la'acher. We said that Ruvain, let's say they sell the house to Ruvain, but the boar and the dus was sold to Shimon. Rabbi Kiva Oimer, Einot Tzarich Likach Lodech. Shimon doesn't have to buy the right of way to the boar because it got sold to him. He's not going to sell a boar and a dus to him without the right of way. The Chachamim are no Tzarich. And this is the issue of whether you sell by Ayin Yofer. According to Rabbi Kiva, you sell with Ayin Yofer, he's going to sell him everything. And the Chachamim say, no, he's going to be stingy and not sell him everything. However, the Gemara tries to reject that. Maybe Dilma Bahai Pligi. Maybe the Seifa is not, they're not arguing based on that principle, but rather, Rabbi Kiva Bava Basra Daf to the Lokechas Lina. We are trying to be in the shoes of the buyer. And the buyer, Shimon, who's buying the boar and the dus, definitely wants to buy the right of way to the boar and the dus. So that makes sense because we're taking the mindset of the buyer. No, we're taking the seller, and the seller wants to retain as much as he can. So maybe there is no proof from the Seifa that Rabbi Kiva and the Chachamim argue regarding this issue of Ayin Yofer or not. Ella meha. So we're going to prove from the following. Another baraisa. It says when you sell a field, lo es abor, velo es agas, velo es ashovach. Let's say in the field is a boar. Let's say there's a gas. That's like a wine press. And let's say there's a shoivach, a birdhouse. Bein charevin, bein yishim, whether they're active, functioning, or not. V'tzarich likach lo derech. The Rabbi Kiva. Rabbi Kiva says that when you sell a field, you retain those things, and you sold off the right of way because you sell ba'ayin yofer, and therefore the guy who wants to get to his boar and his gas has to buy the derech there. Because the guy sold it ba'ayin ra, and so that's the source of the machlokas between ayin ra and ayin yofer. So the Gemara says hasulamali. But why, if you're saying our Mishnah has this principle, why did it have to be repeated? Elalava kamashman, the Rabbi Akiva Sover moicher ba'ayin yofer moicher, Rabbanan Savri moicher ba'ayin ra moicher. So the Gemara still is going to fight this. Maybe Dilma Ashmin and Bias. Maybe he told us the din by a house. And now Kumash belong to Sada, and I had to be told the halach as well by a field. Now, why wouldn't I have been able to deduce one from the other? I needed to be taught the halach in both places. Tzricha. We needed both. The Ashmin and Bias, If I would have only been shown this machlokas by Ayin Yofa, Ayin Ra, by Abayis, we would have said that the buyer doesn't want people tramping through his house. Mishum to buy to get to the board, the dus. Mishum to buy tzniusa. He wants privacy. He doesn't want other people coming in. And Rabbi Kiva then is holding, if it wouldn't have said it, befeirush, we would say the seller does not have schus of a right of way. Elasadeh, a field which is already always open, a mashalo. Maybe we wouldn't say the same thing. If the halacha would have been shown by a field that normally that the moicher won't retain the right, mishum de kashle davsha. The person who's buying the field doesn't want people tramping through there. It's going to damage his produce. Aval bias, we're walking through, maybe it's not so bad, mashalo. So we needed this machlokas in both places. Ella miseifa. We're going to prove it as well from our sefer. We said you sold the house to one party, and you sold the boar and the dus to another party. The guy who bought the boar and the dus doesn't have to buy the right of way to the boar, because it got sold to him. If he was sold the boar and the dus, the mocher sold him the whole thing. The Chacham says no, he'll hold back the mocher, and the buyer will have to buy the right of way. So it's the same thing that they're arguing by a bias. The lava kamash malon shebekiva sover moicher bayin yafa moicher rabbanon savi moicher bayin ra moicher shmami no. The Gemara proved that this is a machloikes. Rabbi Kiva holds that a moicher sells bayin yafa, and Rabbanon holds not. We pass the Rabbi Kiva. Let me read you the halacha from the Rambam. Kol ha-moicher bayin yafa u-moicher. Veinu misher latzber yoyes b'mashem meforish. He doesn't retain, he retains nothing except what he points out. When he sells his house, if he, and let's say there was a board there and he retained the board, he has to turn around and buy the right of way to the board. The way he says kafisha nifsak la'al, and the way the Gemara ended up in the Maskana. Okay, very good. So.